Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic Resistance, and this resistance video is sponsored by contribution from Kevin, and here's his story. Hi, Ollie. I'm a 48-year-old software developer and live just outside London in the UK. Earlier, I forwarded you a PayPal donation. Thanks for the amazing work you're doing. Your channel is very healing for me because I had absolutely no idea that anyone else had been through what I have been through. I had no idea how big this problem was until I discovered your channel earlier this year. I have two brothers, my 10 months old brother Pete, the golden child, and my 2.5 years younger brother Dean. Please understand that I love both my brothers dearly, and I always only want what's best for them, but I'm sharing my story because it needs to be shared. I thought that I dealt with this a long time ago, but as I composed this, in places it felt raw. I originally started posting my story on Facebook, but while I was relaxing in the bath this morning, the universe showed me exactly what I needed to do. I'll start with the two Facebook posts that I posted yesterday. Post 1, Synchronicity. 4 months ago, while browsing YouTube, I realized what my issue with my parents is. I stumbled across the Narcissistic Resistance channel, which is run by Ollie Matthews, and it immediately rang true. I watched a few of his YouTubes and quickly realized that for as far back as I can remember, my mom's been, and in fact still is, a complete narcissist, and my dad's her enabler. As I previously posted on May 24th, 2018, at the moment I'm undoing my mom, and in line with that, yesterday my post targeted God, love, cognitive dissonance, my mom, and the Jehovah's Witness. Oh no. Jehovah's Witnesses. Okay. And Kevin is, because I looked at his Facebook, just so we know, everybody, Kevin is a what I'm assuming is a black male, or at least West Indian from the header title. So he's a black West Indian male living in the UK. And now we find out Jehovah's Witness as well. Raised Jehovah's Witness, and we've had how many of these stories as of lately. Today, Ollie's first two videos, although quite tricky to follow and took me 2 viewings each, more or less summarize my quest as they deal with narcissism, religion, home life, and even malware, so I'll leave him to it. Then I posted 2 of your videos that you released yesterday. 1, the narcissist will be king of a shithole just so they can rule it, and 2, the narcissist creates the malware in your brain. Post 2, religion equals narcissism. My mom would often use the phrase, spare the rod, spoil the child. An all-time favorite line of religious narcissists. Just gives them carte blanche to beat the shit out of you under the God, because God told them to do it. Now understand my feeling on most religious people like this religious narcissist are in fact atheists, and when they're talking about God, they're talking about themselves. And my opinion on as far as Jehovah's Witness is, being a Jehovah's Witness is merely so you could take pleasure in abusing your children. Take pleasure in eliminating your children from the activities of being a child. Birthdays, holidays. Things most Jehovah's Witnesses themselves experienced as children and then converted into being Jehovah's Witness. I don't know if that's Kevin's story or not yet, but we'll see. My mom would often use the phrase, spare the rod and spoil the child, or scriptures from the Bible, such as Proverbs 22:15. Foolishness is bound up in the child's heart, but the rod of discipline will drive it far from them. They love them rods, don't they? Proverbs 23:13. Do not withhold discipline from the child. Although you strike him with a rod, he will not die. Proverb 23:14. Strike him with a rod, and you will deliver his soul from Sheol. She would quote these scriptures prior to and while whipping me with a leather belt. I could see the coldness and hatred in her eyes while she was doing it. Pure hatred, as if there was nothing there. No emotion, no feeling, nothing. Just coldness. Because it's an excuse, Kevin. It was an excuse, and that's what I think you're realizing. It's an excuse. She's getting off on it. She's drawing supply on it, telling you God told her to do it. But she don't believe in God. She believes she's God. The narcissist believes they're God. It's all a scam. It's all a sham. It's all a show. I'd have big welts on my skin for hours. The trick was to belt me anywhere that was clothed. Following that, my punish would be that I wasn't allowed outdoors or to have any friends around. In hindsight, this was so no one could see my injuries and also to give my skin time to heal overnight, meaning that it would go unnoticed. Of course, after your beating, then you have to go. Then comes solitary. Solitary comes after the beating. It always does in any abusive system. After you're beaten, you're thrown into solitary. Why? To cover, so the narcissist can cover up their abuse. And when you got a religious narcissist talking about rods and everything's about abusing you under the guise of God told them to do it. But you know what else, Kevin and I, we haven't even gotten in that far. Most of these religious narcissists who keep bringing up the rod for the child are talking about, especially the women, are talking about a different rod for themselves. They'll be taking multiple rods. Very cold, very calculated. It's a slavery mentality, nothing more, nothing less. Unbelievable but true, which is why I have to bring this into the light now and hopefully help stop this from happening to others. Obviously, nowadays, she'd run the serious risk of going to jail, but this, obviously, still goes on behind closed doors in the name of religion, and often worse. It's outrageous, but from what I've seen and been told, the above is what West Indian Christian discipline looked like, all done in the name of love. Personally, I could think a few things so barbaric as religious discipline. That said, it has nothing to do with religion and everything to do with narcissism. Exactly. It always does. It has nothing to do with religion. Look, these violent, whether it's Christianity, Jehovah's Witness, Islam, no matter what, if you're doing anything in the name of religion, you don't believe in God. You're a narcissist. You believe you're God. And you're using this as an excuse, as your shield. Both of my parents are from the West Indies. Naomi, my mom, is intelligent, but Roy, my dad, for want of better words, isn't, or maybe is less intelligent or even crushed. He was born in Jamaica, uneducated, physically very strong, and had something like 10 brothers and sisters. My mom was born in St. Vincent, educated, mentally very strong, and had a few brothers and sisters. I'm not overly sure about either family because I never really got involved with family members on either side. The family members that did visit us knew exactly what was going on, but none of them ever said anything or ever stood up for me or my two brothers. They're not going to, Kevin. I can't tell you how many. Look, Kevin, you're not the only one. You're one of the first males who's wrote in from either the West Indies or the Caribbean islands. This is a pattern of behavior that even expands outside of the Jehovah's Witnesses and the religion that comes out of these cultures. It's a culture of abuse and silence within the family, where everybody in the family knows, everybody in the community knows, and nobody does a goddamn thing about it. This is cultural. This is cultural narcissism. This is societal narcissism. This is religious narcissism, all wrapped into one. Okay, I already know I can tell you how many, especially black women, black Caribbean women, black West Indian women, are going to be in this comment section telling you, sharing their stories and telling you they know exactly what you're talking about here. And black Jehovah's Witnesses as well. They're going to be in these comments. I promise you. I promise you. It's a culture of This is why it gets out of hand, and you become an adult, and you're a 48-year-old software designer, and you're just figuring this stuff out now off the air because somebody talked about it on the internet, and it's all starting to make sense. The family members that did visit us knew exactly what was going on, but none of them said or did anything or ever stood up for me or my two brothers. It just seemed like business as usual, and it was. I've never been to the West Indies because I developed a strong distaste for this kind of nonchalance. And that's what it is. It is this nonchalance to abuse. It's something that Charlene dealt with in the Dominican Republic. It's something that all of these cultures, I deal with this nonchalance of cultural narcissistic abuse. That's a perfect word for it. Cultural nonchalance of narcissistic abuse is what you've been dealing with. Wrap it into the culture, wrap it into the religion, and you got a super narcissist now in your mother. A weak-minded father, whether he's weak-minded, crushed, enabling, it all comes from a culture of shh. You don't air your dirty laundry. You don't disrespect your mother. That's a queen, Kevin. But we both know that isn't a queen. We both know what that is. We both know that is concentrated evil, don't we? Don't we? And I'm telling you, Kevin, you're going to see how many women and how many black people and how many especially black women are going to be in these comment sections saying, I have the same mother as you. I know of this violence. I know of this cruelty. I know of the silence. I know of it all. You'll see. In contracts, I've been to Thailand some 50 plus times. Well, none of you had balls big enough to say anything, but I have. The beating stopped when I was 14 or maybe 15, and my mom was going to beat me again for some minor misdemeanor outside the kitchen. I stood there, clenched my fists, and said, come on then. But then the enabler, my dad, was listening to us from their bedroom upstairs, came running down, belt in hand, in a fit of rage. Ah! So he's not as crushed as you think he is, huh? Comes down to protect the queen, huh? Because what happened there, Kevin, if you were to stand up to her and stand up to her violence, what your father saw was, oh shit, if Kevin's not going to take this anymore, now I'm going to have to deal with the crazy bitch. He wasn't crushed. He was pulling the strings. He was letting her abuse you so he don't have to deal with her. And he was coming down with that belt in hand to make sure you stayed in fucking line. He chased me through the kitchen and around the dining room, through the living room, and back around to the original position I started from. From there, I unlatched the front door, started opening. It was too late. My dad fell or dived forward and slammed the door shut. I sprinted upstairs with him chasing me, ran into my bedroom, jumped on the bed, grabbed the duvet, and stood there, holding it to my chest high. I was panting and sweating. He then mindlessly beat me with his leather belt, but luckily, I was screaming loudly, and it was so late, it didn't last long. My dad rarely beat me, but he beat you in order to keep your mother and to keep you in line with your mother. And let me tell you something, Kevin. What you should have done is you should have stood there and you should have given him the same line. Come on. Come on. And I guarantee you it would have stopped him dead in his tracks and he would have thought about it. Now, he might have come at you anyway, but you should have stood there and went toe-to-toe with him at that point because you had nothing to lose. You had nothing to lose. He's coming after you in a position of fear, not of strength. My dad rarely beat me. It was my mom who was the more disturbed. Her beatings were horrible and more pronounced, and although they only lasted a minute or so, would be extremely painful, both physically and mentally. She would beat me slowly, watch me writhe, quote scriptures, and stare into my eyes with an indescribable, glassy-eyed hatred. Afterwards, I'd hate her back and envision murdering her. I remember fantasizing about it in order to maintain some level of inner peace. Then, this probably happened once a month, maybe more. Horrible. My mom would strut around with an air of irrigation and ingratiation and just be extremely satisfied over this sadistic ritual. Of course she's satisfied. They get off on it. It's why they do it. They love it. After watching your video, I now realize that my dad had as much a part to play in this as my mom did. All right, good. That's what I was trying to tell you earlier. Your father's pulling this. There's more to do with this than you think. He never intervened. Oh, no. He intervened when you try to stand up for yourself. Okay? Because that's a cuck there. That's a beta male cuck. Okay? Okay, but the beta male cuck will come to the narcissist's defense. That's what you dealt with there. He never intervened until you stand up for yourself. The beta cuck will come to when you stand up for yourself. Period. I now realize that he had either already gotten his narcissistic supply or was just happy that mom got her supply and he was just happy to have the narcissist off his back. That's exactly what I told you, which is why he came down to put you back in check at that point, Kevin. None of this ever made any sense until I watched your videos. I thought my situation was unique, but I thank you and your channel for bringing some clarity to me. I don't care what anyone thinks about me making this public. I felt an internal drive to do it. At the moment, nothing else matters. Hopefully this will help others, just the same as you and your listeners have helped me. I'm in tears writing this, but I can tell you now, death doesn't have the power to stop me. I have something in me that's beyond rage. They were Jehovah's Witnesses, JWs, and my two brothers and I were raised in that religion from birth. No Christmas, no birthdays, no Easter, no New Year's, no assemblies at school, and on and on and on. Not even holidays. In fact, my first holiday was when I went to Devon with a JW friend of mine, Warren, and his parents when I was 15. His dad was an elder in our congregation, and I believe that my mom only let me go on holiday with them because of her guilt for what she did to me regards to a school geography trip that I'll describe later. The only plus point about being a Jehovah's Witness that I had a heads up that Christmas wasn't real, that it only helped me when I got back to school after Christmas holidays and had to explain to my schoolmates why I didn't have any presents. I had to go to the JW Kingdom Hall meetings twice a week on Sunday and Thursday, both for 2 hours, and then we had group study meetings on Tuesdays, which lasted 1 hour, which my mom hosted around our house. We had to prepare and study for Tuesday and Sunday meetings. Different JW books for Tuesday and the Watchtower magazine for Sundays. Then after Sunday meeting, we sometimes had to do field service and go out knocking on people's doors, all together, including travel. It was probably consumed an average of 10 hours weekly, every week. Oh boy, those ones knocking on the doors. Another one of my mom's quotes before her beatings was, "You made your bed, now you're going to lie in it." Well, Mom, now you're lying in yours in more ways than one, because 17 years ago, in January 2001, she had a massive stroke which completely paralyzed her left side, and the paralysis continues unchanged to this day. I was unsure of the date, but earlier my younger brother Dean messaged it to me. I've subsequently thought about this and believe that the stroke happened because my mom lost her main venting mechanisms, one of which was me, and over the years that led to a massive buildup of internal pressure. After the stroke, I remember trying to put aside our differences and trying to give her a hug after she returned to her home from the hospital. I tried, but her vibe was horrible, cold, and feelingless. To be honest, I never hugged anyone with that level of coldness, ever. I tried hugging her on a couple different occasions, but I had to stop because it felt fake. My schoolmates understood how absurd my situation was, which made me wonder why none of my relatives did. Of course your relatives understood it. They understood it, they just didn't care. It's a culture of complacency. It's a culture of silence. That's what you were raised in. When I was about 12 years old, I met my best mate, Dave. He lived on the same housing estate as my parents. He subsequently moved to Thailand, but unfortunately, approximately 4 years ago, at 44 years of age, he died of heart failure. I visited him regularly while he was there. He was a big guy, and he was a really good laugh. He was also very intelligent, and we hung around at school. We got up to minor schoolboy mischief and started smoking cigarettes with him when I was 14. I gave up smoking when I was 21. His mom, Margaret, or Maggie, was an amazing woman. She'd lost her husband, Dave's dad, to a heart attack before I met Dave. She understood me. She was a staunch woman of Irish descent, but she understood my plight. On many occasions when my mom locked me out, Maggie welcomed me around her house. Many times. Unfortunately, she passed away a couple years before Dave. I had to be indoors by 9 p.m. when I was 15, which increased to 10 p.m. when I was 17. I stayed at 10 p.m. until I left home at approximately 21. If I wasn't home by these times, I'd be locked out. Throughout my teenage years, and until I left home most weekends, I would stay around my mate's house. I had to, because if I went to a disco or party or even the pub, I had nowhere else to stay. I would stay around anyone's house. Whether I knew them or not, it was going to be better than going home, which of course I'd be locked out from. I also ran away 2 times that I can remember. And Charlene also used to get locked out of her parents' house a lot. They wouldn't give her a key, and then they would lock the door and they would lock her out. I also ran away 2 times that I can remember. Once in my pajamas, but that was only for a few hours, and the other time was for 2 or 3 days. It was funny because I stayed around my mate Simon's house, which backed onto my mom's. It was in the summer, and it was funny watching all the commotion through the windows, including watching the police going to house from house. My older brother, Pete, the golden child, was adored by my parents and was always given privileges over me. He got a house key when he was 15, I think, the 2nd or 3rd year of secondary school. I didn't get a key till I was working as a trainee contracts manager at age 17. I remember him getting the key very covertly. He was an avid Jehovah's Witness and was baptized into the religion either before or soon after he left school. In fact, he was an avid anything that pleased mom. At the end of the 3rd year of secondary school, I was the best pupil in the school at geography. My year-end exam was over 90%. No one could touch me. Nobody. Not even the golden child, and my mom knew it. In the 4th year of secondary school for O-level preparation, the school organized a trip to Snowdonia in North Wales. It was important to go on the trip because there was little to no chance of passing the O-level exam otherwise. My mother was fully aware of that. Therefore, my next minor misdemeanor resulted in her canceling my trip. I was gutted and felt broken. The geography teacher tried to help me, but to no avail. I eventually failed O-level geography by getting a D, and I think that everyone went on that trip passed the exam, including my brother. After all that, I left school with more qualifications than the golden child. I got 5 O levels and he got 4. Prior to the exams, my dad promised to give us £5 each for each O level passed, but recanted on me when I showed him my results. I'm unsure whether Pete got paid, but my guess is that he did. Me and the golden child shared a double bed in a large bedroom during our younger years. At some point early on in secondary school, I believe we got a single bed in our room, but for some reason I can't remember who slept in it. Probably me. But for some unknown reason, it's all very hazy. Maybe we swapped. Dean, on the other hand, had his own bedroom, which was the small room. Me and my younger brother Dean suffered from eczema when we were younger, and for me and no doubt him too, it was incredibly embarrassing, which caused more stress, which then can cause more eczema. You get the picture. The cycle was endless, and I would try my best to hide my raw, flaky, or scabby skin. Later on, after I left home, I believe the golden child got issues of his own when he developed psoriasis, which caused hair loss. It's my belief that mom's toxicity was then somehow being directed at him, and he fell victim to it. To be honest, she's the devil incarnate. Anyone exposed to her for any length of time is damaged, one way or the other. She's a monster. Until I stopped visiting my parents, I'd have occasional skin flare-ups. However, since going no contact in February this year, I feel a deep healing taking place, and I've not had so much as an itch. I guess no contact cures the narcissistic itch, doesn't it? It's strictly no contact, but it's enough. My mom still calls me about once a month, but I try to keep the conversation to a bare minimum, and if the vibe drops or she spouts out about God, I hang up. She also loves arguing. She loves to argue with my dad because she can't lose. She has nothing good to say about anything unless it's elevating her ego. Till this day, I stopped going around there. My parents argued constantly, probably still do. My mom mentally destroys my dad, but most of the time he's totally oblivious to it. Even if he validly pulls her up on a point, she can spin him off into some meaningless trivia from which he can never, not rarely, he never recovers. In the past, on occasion, I've joined in to help my dad, but I soon realized that it was futile because it was a game that my mom was playing to rope everyone in. I couldn't win because I'd already lost. The second I got involved, most times, though, she'd lose her footing somewhere and end up getting stressed out about something. This happened time after time after time. Sometimes I thought that they were playing a game, and to some extent I still believe that sometimes they were. But at the beginning of the year I realized it was all heinous act of some sort. To this day I'm not sure if either of them are aware of what they're actually doing or how toxic this behavior is for anyone involved, including them. Of course they understand what they're doing. The narcissist always understands exactly what they're doing. Don't ever think that they don't. It's all planned. It's all calculated. They know exactly what they're doing. I started to realize how toxic this couple was years ago, and last year I pre-warned my mom on a couple occasions that soon she'd probably never see me again. On one of the occasions, she said she would miss me because she didn't take it seriously. For the last 12 months of going around there, I would meditate deeply and watch the scenario play out. It was the same scenario every time. My mom and dad arguing, both stressing each other and me out, and then them trying to goad me into an argument. However, I would meditate to a level where I was in the room, but I wasn't. I'm empathetic, and eventually I'm empathic and eventually decided to and use this ability to heal myself whenever I visited them. I used to refine myself and my interpersonal skills. I could feel the triggers, but instead of reacting, I would meditate into them. and meditate into them, the feelings and the emotions, until they dissolved. I'd watch my parents trying to trigger me, but I also think they were triggering me subconsciously. I've been meditating on and off since I was 21, and it's more or less my natural state now. After a few months of this, I would visit my parents and feel no discernible triggers. My work with them was done, and since February, although they only live about 2 kilometers away, I haven't returned. I hope my story can help heal individuals struggling in or with the West Indian or Jehovah's Witnesses community. I had a few major epiphanies over the years, and since February have posted my insights publicly on Facebook. Your channel has also helped me see how and why I have been attracting narcissists my whole life. I have a couple of other related stories, a friend that I lent money to a couple of years ago for his daughter's wedding, and a girlfriend I met in December 2016, but I'll leave those stories for another time. Any input you have would be greatly appreciated. Kevin. Well, Kevin, you're trapped in the typical, Caribbean Jehovah's Witness, culture of silence that it is. I mean, you said it earlier, you're dealing with the nonchalance of cultural narcissism here. Nobody would stand up to it. Everybody knew it was going on. Your father knew it was going on. Your father only got involved when you stood up to your mother because he didn't want to deal with her bullshit. And I think the overriding theme here, Kevin, is the further you got away from your mother and your parents, the better you've been. No contact cures the narcissistic itch, so to speak. If your story proves nothing else, it proves that. So, I hope that helps. Thank you so much for your contribution and your story, Kevin. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a narcissist you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, or a Facebook live chat, or you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you guys. Without you, all this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been The Narcissistic Resistance.